In terms of the deficit, he says we are on track in this country, and I've just looked at the figures for the deficit in 2010, 148 billion. This is effectively the country's overdraft, and in 2011 it's 124 billion, so it's gone down by 24 billion. But government debt is going up. 2010 to 2011, it's gone up. Overall government debt has gone up by over 140 billion. So when he says those who want us to spend more want us to borrow more, we are borrowing more anyway.
Yeah, and that debt will be higher, considerably higher, at the end of this Parliament than it is now, and a good deal higher than it was when the coalition came in. And the reason for that is, of course, that deficit and debt are two different things. Deficit is the rate at which you continue to borrow money, and the plan is to get that down to zero. And that's not going to take till 2017 on the government's plans. They hope to do it by the next election. They can't, but it's about the number of pounds, extra pounds that we borrow. And all the time you're doing that, the national debt continues to climb well over and through the £1 trillion mark. So we're not really talking about eliminating debt. That's not even on the agenda. We're just talking about slowing down the rate of increase.
Right, OK. All right, thank you, John, for the moment. Rudy in Bristol and Gail in Exeter will both listen to the speech from Mr Cameron. And give me your thoughts, Rudy.
Well, I mean, I think if anybody like me can listen to a man with a personal fortune in excess of over £30 million talking about austerity and retain their breakfast, well, I think you're a better person than me. I mean, the very idea that this is somebody who can make any comment, without simply turning back in shame, speaking to people who are poor, who are weak, and who are disabled, talking to them about the importance of reducing this country's deficit, and talking about indebtedness, and talking about borrowing when it has absolutely no impact on these people. What does have an impact is the swingeing cuts that his government are making upon these people. And let's not forget, I mean, we were talking beforehand about, whether things are fair and reasonable in society in terms of pricing. I mean, we're talking about hotel rooms being at £1,000. Your previous caller before said he would have thought it was fair to pay £300, and then I think we had somebody afterwards from one of the hotels saying that prices were about £90. Now, I mean, let's not forget that there are millions of people in this country for whom the idea of paying £90 a night for a hotel is simply astronomical.
So before I hear Gail's thoughts on what Mr Cameron had to say, do you believe in Labour's alternative? Some people say it's not that much of an alternative.
There is no alternative. Labour, Conservative, Liberal, there are no alternatives. They are simply peddling a line that benefits the rich, which is the capitalist line.
Do you agree that the deficit has to be brought down? I mean,
I think it's the whole financial setup of this country and of Europe, and in fact the world, is simply an illusion.
So we could continue to spend beyond our means?
No, why not? How would it change? Have you or I, Victoria, noticed any difference in terms of our lives to the benefit in the government's current plan and actions to reduce the deficit? Because
interest rates have been low. Interest rates have been in a record low for a long time, and that has benefited loads of people. Okay, electricity bills have gone up, inflation.
Have you found that your quality of life has improved as a consequence? Do you lead a better life today?
No, but there are all sorts of there's all sorts of personal reasons for that.
And yet there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands, if not millions of people whose quality of life has drastically plummeted because of these actions, which supposedly are servicing this deficit, this all-important deficit.
Well, the argument is that actually it will benefit our grandchildren. Why should we load the debt onto them? Why should we ignore it, stick our head in the sand?
It's a proven fact that the gap between rich and poor over the last 30 years has increased. So if you look at if we are the grandchildren, then we don't have a quality of life that is as good as our grandparents do. I mean, it's obviously you can measure it in many different ways. It's arguable, but certainly from a financial perspective, that is simply not the case.
Gail.
So why should we trust that it will be different for our grandchildren?
Gail, what do you think about what Mr Cameron has to say?
Well, I'd say that I have got a better life than my grandparents had. So from that point of view, I think I do. I don't think he can deviate from the path they've gone down. I think that's half the problem, is that when things chop and change, that's where it goes wrong. And I know it's tough, and I appreciate that maybe I'm in a luckier position than a lot of people are. And in Devon, we probably haven't seen as much of an impact of the downturn as a lot of other parts of the country have. But I personally don't think you can just keep on spending. You keep on spending, you end up in a position that Greece are in. And what happens in Greece when everyone pulls the plug and they can't pay their public sector workers and they can't pay their pensions and they can't pay everything else?
But we are borrowing more as a nation. So we are spending.
Well, but like John Pienaar said, there's a difference between deficit and debt, isn't there? So we are, but ultimately we won't be, is me. And I suppose maybe I've got two children, sort of young teenage children, and I don't want them to be, I don't want the country to be in a horrendous position when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s. And if it means people have to take sort of pay now, as I say, I appreciate I'm probably speaking from quite a lucky position.
Sure.
And like the previous gentleman said, the cuts haven't particularly affected me altogether. They sort of have indirectly. I'm a chair of governors at a primary school, and we see cuts to our school budget, and we can't do things in school that we'd like to be able to do, and that obviously affects some of the children. But on a personal level, it hasn't particularly affected me. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, Gail, thank you very much for your insightful contribution. Rudy, thank you as well. Dan in Cardiff, hello. You wanted to talk about David Cameron's speech?
Yeah, I just find it, to be honest, he's someone I just can't trust. It's as simple as that. And I find that all these issues, the problem is that all this analysis I find is toothless. And when I talk about this, what I really, really, really mean is, please, everybody, go and have a look into the social analysis of the Zeitgeist movement. This is a movement that's come about because we're looking at the fact that the debt crisis is an eternal financial trap that we can never get out of because of the way money's made. The interest is expected to be paid back on it. It doesn't exist in the money supply. We're over-consuming the planet's resources by 50% every year. Technological unemployment is going to be a huge deal in the coming years.
Is there a political party, Dan, that speaks for you in this country at the moment?
No.
So when it comes to the next election, we don't know. Labour haven't told us what any of their policies will be yet, although we do know they said they'd stick to the public sector pay freeze. They haven't named any particular policies of the coalition governments that they would reverse. So what will you do? Will you find an independent in your constituency? What will you do?
I don't have any faith in the political system. I agree with the statement that when we tackle problems, we have a tendency to try and split them up into little parts and tackle them that way. Well, really what we should be doing is looking at the big issue, like what's the root cause of the problem. I think that is the fact we have a social system which cannot provide equality. So I think we need to transition to a resource-based economy.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Gail. Your views welcome. 0500 909 693. Time for some travel. Here's Michelle.
Thank you.
In terms of the deficit, he says we are on track in this country.